Hey, what's going on, guys? We're back with another episode of the PokeTalk podcast. Jumping in with some Pokemon Day news. This is a bigger episode, one of the bigger ones of the year. So, yeah, are you hyped for this one?
I feel like it's still
disappointment.
Anticipation. I mean, I don't want to say that per se, because I guess as you get older, you realize the days go quicker and the years go faster, and you were kind of, if you understand that this is kind of a bridge year and realize that this is a bridge to something bigger and hopefully better, it can be both exciting and also, budding with anticipation.
Why do you think the years go quicker as we get older? Do you think it's just perspective, or?
I think it's just because basically as you have more time, more memories, more experiences that are kind of the same in, same out, your mind does ways of kind of, I don't want to say shortchanging it, but just kind of breezing through those experiences. Kind of like how sometimes when you're driving to work or whatever, sometimes you don't even realize it and you're already there, or you're already back home from work because you've done it so many times.
Yeah.
Kind of like that, but on a larger scale.
Yeah, I kind of think it's people doing the same thing every day. Once you hit your career, you're kind of in autopilot for a lot of people. Kind of doing the same thing, so every day kind of feels the same. So the day last year felt like a day this year. You're not doing something different. You don't have a new teacher in high school. You don't have a different friend group. Pretty much life's in cruise control, right? And then you've also experienced more. So like a 1 year to a 5-year-old is 1/5 their life. And like 1 year to, a 10-year-old is 1/10. So like as you get older, 1/60th of a lifetime for a 60-year-old is much less time than a 5-year-old. But that's my theory.
Pretty much. I'm going to say it's pretty much the same thing that I just said, honestly.
Yeah.
But in a different way.
I do think it's in large in part doing the same thing, though, too. Because, like, if there's a period or a year where, like, I've done the same thing or experienced the same feeling for a long period of time, like that period of time just all seems like one flash. But bridge years, though. Hopefully this year goes by fast, because
yeah, I mean that's pretty much what it is. And now that we know 2025, I assume February of 2025, because they've announced it this year and not next year. And we're gonna have this Z to A, which is Kalos, assumingly
Pokemon
a Legends. Yeah, Za, right? Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of Za. But presumably it's going to be a Legends game, which I'm all here for it. Megas. But we're probably going to get a little bit ahead of ourselves. But I mean, I'm excited for it. I also am excited for what it potentially means for the end of 2025 and what it means potentially for the Gen 10. And that's something we'll be able to get into a little bit later as we kind of go into the whole Pokemon Presents. But I know there's still some other stuff we have to get through first.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. I mean, to me, there's really only two main announcements, which pretty much everybody's on the same page with that, I think. Of course, they announced things with Pokemon GO and Unite and all this. Like, there's a special hat Pikachu coming for a promo and Go.
Oh my god.
Yeah, there's just little things, but we did have a new game, Pokemon Legends ZA, and a new mobile game / experience coming to mobile, which is a TCG Pocket. And yeah, that is going to be the big topic today for the most part, because that is really interesting. To give you a quick snippet, if you haven't seen anything, digital Pokemon packs you can open and trade with friends and battle. So yeah, it's exciting stuff. We'll talk about that. Before that, though, there is some news-ish topics that we should check out. I guess the big one is, or not really big, but interesting, about eBay. They published their Pokemon TCG stats for 2023. And I To my knowledge, I think this is the first time they've done this, so they're hopping on the Pokemon hype, and they released their stats just for Pokemon. And there is a Pokemon Day campaign. They did do this last year where they had like a Catch 151 campaign on Tuesday where they partnered with certain people, certain sellers, and everybody started like a bunch of auctions that started at 151. And the catch is that they're only 24-hour auctions, so they go up on midnight and they end on midnight. So they're only up for Pokemon Day. So the potential is there to get a lot of deals, I guess, but Pokemon provided a couple of these sellers that I know of. One is TCA Gaming and Z&G Emporium. They actually provided them with some stuff, so they're kind of in on it too. So kind of interesting to see them take part in giving product to sellers on the secondary market, but interesting event they had. And with that, they
Well,
announced all their stats. So
and what's the one that kind of strikes out at you the most of all the ones that they have, just out of curiosity?
of all the stats here,
Yeah.
um, I guess should we run through them all real quick?
Well, I was just curious which one, like, I mean, there's one that noticeably pops out at me, but yeah, we can go ahead and go through them all.
All right, so there's just bullet points here. In 2023, eBay users searched for Pokemon items more than 400 times a minute globally on average. So 400 times every minute someone was searching for Pokemon specifically. Pretty nuts. 2023, the most searched Pokemon character was Charizard, followed by Pikachu. And then this one surprised me. Third place was Mew.
Who do you think third place should be or would have been?
I thought it would have been Umbreon or, sometimes Gengar pops up. Mew does too. It's just interesting that Mew popped up. Like, I would think maybe Mewtwo. But then
Well,
again, I think maybe Mew took the cake because he was in 151 as like a special card and then that special illustration rare.
which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, so he probably took the cake just from that. It was a really cool
Well,
card.
and we encountered a guy today at the local card show that he specifically said he's trying to become like a Mew collector. And, I know that's anecdotal, but we both like Mew. Like Mewtwo is on my top five, you know.
Yeah, he's solid. And one of my buddies, shout out to Alex if he's listening. He was a Mew collector when he started out. He's got a few nice Mew cards in his collection. So yeah, I don't know what it is, but it's a cool Pokemon, and it's striking a chord to a lot of people wanting to collect just Mew.
And anybody that grew up during the Pokemon 2000 movie as well, because Mew kind of stole the show a little bit there.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Another stat, top 3 most expensive cards on eBay was a PSA 10 first base Charizard. Sold November 2023 for $217,500. I want to say that may have been Gem Mint Pokemons that he consigned through Catch 'em All Collectibles. Dan. Might be mistaken, but I know they consigned one around that time. Which is crazy. Dan has the access to the eBay vault, so he's been doing a lot of consigning there. And with the eBay vault, there's like hardly any fees at all. Like he's offering cards above like $10,000 at a flat 1% fee just to promote like him selling through there. So pretty sure between that deal, Zach, Jim, and Pokemon had to pay a 1% fee on that $200,000 sale. So that's pretty nuts with the eBay vault. I imagine they'll be changing those rates very soon. But it is an interesting business tactic. They're just trying to get customers right now, so it makes sense.
mm-hmm.
Number 2 is a CGC 8 Charizard Disco Hollow test print. So this is one that was kind of cut off the disco sheet. I think we may have talked about that on the podcast, but there's a lot of names involved there, including
Yeah,
Dave
the person.
Parsons.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had basically a sheet, and he just wanted one of each of the cards on the sheet because he's a complete collector, and then the rest got sold to another guy. But the third most expensive card was a CGC 5 EX Charizard Disco Hollow, and it was a partial print. The last one sold, that Disco Hollow Charizard I mentioned before was 125,000, and then this one, the EX Charizard Disco, was 100,000. So wasn't
These are
many
just on eBay too.
illustrators. Yeah, wasn't many illustrators on there. I guess a lot of
No.
those were on
Well,
Heritage and stuff.
yeah, I think a lot of these bigger sales are also done privately. A lot of these people, it seems like, know people or they're within the same circles where they can reach out to reach these other people. So a lot of these show up, I imagine, are done through private sales. A lot of these much bigger transactions, and eBay's vault helps with the fees, but that's definitely plays a role, I would think. And also, it's just I feel a lot of these people that are friends and buddy and friends and buddy buddies. It gets to the point where you're able to enjoy, I guess you if you will, the hobby on this 1% scale, essentially. So you're talking to these people, you're wooing them almost, and you're selling them. Is I imagine how this works. I have no idea. I've never been involved in a transaction that high, but just the ones that I've seen on YouTube, and I just imagine that's how it would be because I know that's how I would want it done if I was doing a transaction this big. Like, hey, let's meet up, let's do whatever, and here's the money, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
and it'd kind of be an event.
Yep. It'd be the way to do it. Um, but yeah, this last. I say this is the last stat, but we got two more. The last one answers your question, but in October 2023, the month after Pokemon announced its partnership with Van Gogh Museum, users searched for Pikachu Van Gogh nearly 40,000 times per day on average. So that's pretty insane. Just goes to show,
Well,
we've talked
and
about how many of this card is out there, but just the power of people wanting that card, it's just crazy.
and what that tells me, as you can imagine, that is the one that stuck out to me the most. And what that tells me is that anytime there's a big sought after card, if you're considering getting in financially within that market, I think that answers your question
Yeah.
on it, if you should or not. Because we talked like, oh, the other foot's going to drop, the all of a sudden Pokemon is going to just go ahead and just unleash the floodgates on this. And we thought they wouldn't. Like, here was the Pokemon Center promo. I was like, okay, here it is. This is where officially things are going to just go crazy with the amount of in circulation. Well, it didn't. And yeah, they messed up. And yeah, they might not have another situation like this ever again. But what that tells me is any sort of card, even like the world's promo card last year, or like the end of era promo card that happened with the Sword and Shield. Um, that just goes to show that if you're unsure about hopping on that market, that pretty much confirms to me that there's so many people in on it and interested in it. It's almost feels like a can't miss situation that you'll at least make your money back.
Yeah, you want to wait as long as possible, though. Like, I'll probably pick one up at KCCon when we go.
Bingo Pikachu, yeah. I mean, I'm not talking about buying now. Well, still
Yeah.
wait for it to go lower. I'm just saying, generally speaking, like the world promo, if you were able to get it early enough, now time also plays a role here, but like if you're able to get it early enough, you could have made a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Or even with the end of era promo, where you were able to get, if I was able to get several of those, I could have made a little bit of money, but instead I just sold the one.
Mm-hmm. Well, in this situation, like we said, it's happened before, but this one was even more chaotic. And I think it was because so many people got this card before it was released, where it basically sold out day one, like by shady means. Because, I mean, we're seeing that now. People are trying to offload the storage boxes of this promo like wildfire because they were holding on to these things. So there were a lot more produced that just got scooped up behind the counter. Because, yeah, I actually got 2 of them with Pokemon Center orders. So I hurry up and jumped on that. I ordered 2 ETBs that I basically sold at like a $5 loss just because I just got them to get the promos essentially. And then I immediately sold those promos for whatever they were going for at the time. I want to say like 160 to 200. Like I instantly just got rid of them because I was like, this card's going to be printed to the ground. But I wasn't expecting the situation that we had with people hoarding the boxes or taking them before they even hit the shelves. So that almost led to a situation where it still sold out no matter what. And the card actually went up for like the next few weeks after I sold. So that is extremely rare for that to happen. And Pokemon obviously quickly has fixed that by giving more out to the stores. The card came down, but then it started creeping back up again because that supply quickly ran out. And then finally, they just said, here's another batch, an even bigger batch. That's finally, I think, taking it down for real. Cracking packs over there or what?
I actually am. I was like, let's see what I get out of this. I was meaning to do this, and I was actually meaning to do it during the podcast. So I can be like,
It
hey,
sounded like something that you opened had like a plastic cover, so it must be
yeah.
like a ETB or a tin or something.
No, it's the speaking of Van Gogh, it's what got me to go get it. This is what I bought when I thought I was also getting a Van Gogh promo. Well, it was in the cart, and I clicked checkout. I thought it was good. Well, it turns out it wasn't, and I never got one. And you try to email them, and they're like, "F you," And then of course, you can't return any sort of like TCG product. So then it becomes F me. So obviously, it's very frustrating, but I'm just finally deciding to open it for shits and giggles.
Yeah. Well, while you're getting that ready, the last Pokemon stat on the eBay releasing was searches for Pokemon 151 increased by nearly 11,000% in January 2024 compared to January 2023. And that's the stat that really sticks out to me because, yeah, that's a lot. But they put Pokemon 151, and I don't know if they didn't realize, but like PokeBeach even mentioned something like this. Like it might be eBay not realizing that Pokemon 151 came out in October 2023, or maybe they just assumed Pokemon fans were searching that term specifically. But yeah, I can't imagine many people were like searching Pokemon 151 as like a search term.
No, we
Unless
got the
they are
set.
like truly Gen 1 collectors. But there's a lot of those searches. But then you literally have like the most popular set of the year named Pokemon 151. You see an 11,000% increase. Of course you do. But so I don't
I
know.
wonder what the correlation is.
Yeah, I don't know why they put that stat in there. Maybe to like make their investors feel good, or maybe they just don't know. I don't know. It's a funny stat. That one stuck out to me the most because it's like, well, yeah, of course it would raise that much.
Yeah, the
It's
play
like
mat's
it's like
pretty
if
cool.
yeah, the search terms right now, I'm sure for Pokemon, I don't know,
Would be the
Pokemon
Pokemon
Johto.
Pocket or Pocket, something with like the Pocket Game Boy.
Yeah, or like Pokemon Johto. Like, I'm sure people are searching Pokemon Johto, but if they released like a set or a game called Pokemon Johto, it's people are gonna be searching like that like wildfire. So yeah, interesting that they included that stat.
Yeah.
But let's see what else we got. They did do a special Van Gogh article on here saying that it's finally dropping below $100 and still falling. Um,
It's gonna drop below to. It's gonna drop to about special delivery Charizard prices.
yeah,
That is Pokemon's goal.
yeah, for sure. If it drops below that, um, yeah, it'd be pretty nuts. I say like $50 to $60. We'll probably see if we
Yeah.
see it 50 at KC CollectCon. I'll probably pick one up. If
I kind
they,
of want a 10 at that point because 80. If the 10's like 80 to 90, I'll just buy the 10.
I just want it for like my little stash of cards that I'm just buying that I like. It's not really, it doesn't really fit into my PSA collection, but it'd be a card I definitely wouldn't mind picking up. Um, Yeah, the second wave was almost as large as the first, doubling the first batch. Hobby stores were left out of this wave, and it pretty much was big box stores, and definitely had increased security. And you had, I guess, stores had to scan the cards, so I guess the packages had a barcode on them, like the cellophane, so they could compare, like headquarters could compare how many cards they shipped to each store versus how many were distributed. And Pokemon
Oh,
knows
yeah.
100% of these things should be given away because people will go crazy. So if you're a store who had got 400 of them and you only scan 200 of them, they're going to be looking, they're going to be knocking at the door. So you better be careful with that if you're a store owner over there. But yeah, that's an interesting way to do it. I hope they do that moving forward because, yeah, just put a little barcode or put a little scan on there. Knowing Pokemon and just knowing the situation, I bet
I don't know.
all the packages had the exact same barcode. So the store probably scanned and opened one and then just scanned that same barcode every time.
Well, I was going to say, like, given I don't work within the card, like, necessarily within that aspect of the card industry, um, I feel like the store should have no obligation to show Pokemon their stats other than how much they're buying from Pokemon.
Yeah.
I don't feel like Pokemon can really say, "Hey, show us how many times that it was scanned." I feel like that aspect's more coming from within the store itself, because the store is using the how many times was the barcode scanned to correspond with how many are no longer in inventory to make sure that it went to the customers and not to the employees.
Yeah. It
That
is
to me
interesting. I didn't think about it like that.
that's what that tells me because I don't know how like yeah, I mean just with I know it's not Pokemon, but I mean I do have interactions with fairly big companies when it comes to vendors and like how kind of things work, given it is in its own niche market, I guess you can say. But generally speaking, the only thing that they're going to be aware of again is how much they're buying from they are buying from Pokemon.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
my same take for that is, yeah, it's not really any of their business. Like, why don't you fix your online store? And like, I don't know what it is, but
their
obviously the
online store is
systems you
shit.
have,
Like
yeah, the systems you have proven to fail
and
all the way
for
back
how
to Special Delivery Pikachu, and then you
and for
saw the
how
fiasco with Charizard. Now
yeah
this.
how big Pokemon is, their website should be like Amazon level. Okay, it should be. I'm not saying to have like all the user interface icons necessarily because I think that aspect's okay, but I think like the e-commerce and security aspects pretty questionable.
Yeah, I don't know, but then again, it's like they don't have really enough products to really maintain that level of site up until the last couple years where they finally seem like they're like every week they released a new item on the Pokemon Center now. So now it
They
seems good, but
they out here charging like $100 for a team where we're not sure. I think they got some money.
well, yeah, no doubt they have money, but it's like,
Yeah,
well, the things are gonna sell out in like 5 minutes anyway. So it's
I mean
like,
it's so they're using their Game Freak logic with their Pokemon e-commerce logic. I mean it's about on par,
yeah,
you know. So it's frustrating though because I do buy from the Pokemon Center several times a year. I think you do as well.
yeah. Yeah, this is speaking of the card show today that you mentioned earlier. I literally last night I was on the Pokemon Center and I had the four Worlds decks in my cart. And I was like, I don't really need these. They were like $15 a piece, so it was pretty good. It's like what, $60, and went to the card show today and I saw those four decks again. They had it where you could buy all four for 48 and straight up 48, no tax. And you could tell it was it was the main store who runs this show, and he just kind of sees this as another junk product. In a way, they are, because you can't even play with the cards, but these are some of the most popular quote unquote junk products of Pokemon's sets over the years. And I think they might go back before this, but I think they go back to like 2004, if I'm not mistaken.
I know from I had some from as far back as like 2009 whenever I bought like a lump collection and they had those random cards in there and then I found out that basically the person took out everything that was decent. I mean, I still was able to make my money back and then some because it was during the hype, but like you can tell the kid had a bunch of like he must have had a big old binder of like all these hollows going back to the Gold Star era. And I was like, damn,
Yeah.
I wish I could see that binder.
And yeah, the only reason I bought them is because, like, I got an itch to play Pokemon after Lorcana. Like, I built three Lorcana decks that were pretty much like the meta decks at the time when set one came out. So I'm a big Magic player, so I have a lot of Magic decks. But it would be cool to have those three Lorcana decks to play with if I want to play Lorcana. And then I got to thinking, well, it'd be cool to have a couple Pokemon decks as well. And eventually, not anytime soon, but it would be cool to go back and buy the Worlds decks so you could play in like any era that you want to. And like, why not just buy the Worlds decks that have literally exact clones of the like top four decks of the finals? So it's pretty cool. Be cool just to play with the guy, the Masters champion.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. They were always a tease because when I was going through the collection, I would see this awesome card, and then I would look, and it was the World Tournament card, and I would just be like, really,
Yeah,
really,
and
you know,
it's got their name on the front of the box, and
yeah.
it's
I
cool.
mean, that's
But
cool if you won that. I mean, I would totally if I were that person, I'd buy a case of those things
yeah,
straight up.
Vance. It has right on the box, Vance Kelly, Muse
Mhm.
Revenge. It was a Mew
Like
V Max deck.
I would keep a case of it, keep them completely sealed, have that be like that for a long time. And then even buy some where you can play with, just like show off. I hope they gave him like a case just for it. But
Yep, it's got the Masters Champion deck, the Masters Finalist deck, the Junior Champion deck, and then the Senior Champion deck. So those are all pretty cool there.
yeah, we also saw a guy that had some Pokemon there, and he actually had some decent stuff. It wasn't anything like you didn't have anything crazy. I think the most expensive card he had was the potentially the PSA 10 Umbreon Altart. I think that was the main card he had that he was trying to sell.
Yeah, yeah, it's he had a couple good things in there.
But
Like
I also say,
get you excited for Collecticon.
yeah, I mean, for sure. I also got some stuff that I think is worth grading from him and potentially double my money on each of them because one of the things, it's definitely at least a 9 and has a shot at a 10. I want to say it's like 60-40. I kind of have to get a little bit lucky, but I think if it's a 10, it was totally worth it. If not, I break even. So, but you kind of run into these card shows and you have just you never know what you might see. Like with this guy right here that we had. We weren't expecting to see somebody that actually had some decent stuff. I figured it would be like literally some guy's collection of like Hotsy and I don't know, uh Hattle Styles bulk.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It had a wide array of stuff, a bunch of modern, as you can imagine. It's really evident that a lot of vendors, it seems like they're making money off of the uh, dollar and $2 and $3 cards almost more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people are going after those like $1, $2, $3 illustration rares. That's what we both did.
Yeah, it really got me thinking. If I see these cards I like for $1-2, like we talked about, it's like I've always talked about playing or getting a little binder, just starting to pick up cards that I myself like. But a lot of these cards that I think are cool for artwork, I mean, they're like $1 cards that you could probably hustle and bustle for like $2 in person, even if they're still only $1 cards. Like if I ever went into vending down the road, because like I talked about this Collecticon, maybe busting in and grading my binder cards. If I do that, I won't really have much more inventory aside from shuffling around the personal collection. So if I pick up these small cards and start vending, like it'd be good to have, like a good chunk of cards that I could bring for like the kids to check out and to get the small sales. So it kind of fills a purpose, collecting cool cards, dirt cheap. A lot of them could go from $1 to $2, $3 very easily. Or future potential of actually vending more when I'm done collecting. I could just use them there. So really not a lose either way you look at it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're basically
And
alt arts. I mean, look at our first alt arts we got, and now we got illustration rares that are fairly common that have better art than any of those. It's
and
pretty amazing.
we mentioned this before on our podcast how you can enjoy the hobby for really cheap if you really want to. And I mentioned it was through the guy that runs the show, his shop, where he was helping sell some cards from a friend, and it included a lot of illustration rares. They're like $2, $3, $4, $5 then, but still pretty dirt cheap. I was like, that's really really cheap. And a few of them are ones that I bought today. They were the Spirit Tomb illustration rare, the Gengar illustration rare, basically any card of any Pokemon that I really like, or in some cases I thought is just really good art that's worth buying of a Pokemon that's really cool that I might not like, but it's still pretty neat, especially for just $1. Who cares?
Yeah.
These are the cards where in a couple years, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever, these $1 cards are going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, $10 in near mint condition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very easily too. I mean, yeah, a lot of people, there's just so many of them to pick from. Like, I do see the situation where they might go like 2, 3 more so, but there's always going to be a lot available. So that's what I fear in like not grading them, that, they're going to continuously be dirt cheap if they're not graded. But, maybe the time comes when they're worth to grade and you can
Hmm.
pick them up in good condition anyway. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking, you're talking 10, 15 years potentially too, where these cards are the equivalent of whatever $10 is today or so, like seven, eight, nine, $10 today. And then at that point, it can become to the point where in a 10, they might be worth the equivalent of 50, $60 a day. And all of a sudden you have, say in a situation you have 100 of these cards, okay? You pick the best ones that you know that are going to be tens. I mean, just think about how much money you're making.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're talking probably $30 after grading and fees or whatever, maybe. Um, I mean, if you got 100 of those cards that are the legit 10 chances, you just do the math there.
Yep, a lot of potential there.
Several $1,000s without hardly putting in any money in, very little risk. And I even check each one of these conditions too to see if they have a shot at a 10. And when they do, I go ahead and buy it.
Yep. Yeah, I'll
Because I
be
have
picking
now,
them up here and there for sure.
honestly, I think I got like 20 to 30 now. It's just every so often. And when we go to Kansas City, that might be my main goal.
Just
Honestly,
picking
like
those up.
sell a bunch of my stuff, but then also go ahead and just buy a bunch of $1 singles, unless there's like something on my Grail list that comes up. Like I'm gonna bring my PSA 9 Mario Pika and pretty much everything worth value that's worth anything just to see.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I pull the trigger on something, but all in all, I'm just planning on going to have fun with it and making money off it as I can, both short term and short to mid to long term. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, watching everybody's Dallas videos and then going today, it's got me excited. Um, like I just said, I need to raid those binders. I might be doing some
Oh, which I
videos.
did. I did that today as well. After we went to the
Right through the
show, I
collection.
basically, yeah, I went through pretty much everything. I think there's still one more thing I was trying to find. I thought I had some EV Heroes pack somewhere, but I might have sold those too. I thought I kept like half a dozen to a dozen or something, but I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's with saying a few of these cars off to be graded, plus with what I found. I mean, we're talking several $1,000s worth, in addition to potentially bringing a few other things. So it's going to be very interesting because I didn't think I had this much left without really tapping into my personal collection, but I guess I do.
Yeah, I didn't think you had too much left either. I thought you already rated them, but yeah, there's a
Well,
few cards in there I'd be interested in.
yeah, and there's a few of these bulk cards. I think what I'll do is see if I can't swap it for Yeti Gaming or somewhere and get something worth something that to grade that, and then get cash out
Yeah.
and then get my money back finally. Or that's not money back. This is all like pure profit, honestly. But like some of the EV Heroes VE cards, you know, they should be worth a few bucks to somebody. How much they'll give me, it's hard to say.
Yeah. For sure. Be interesting. I'm just ready to get there and check it out.
Yeah, but I want to say real fast. They announced Chuck Norris is coming to Kansas City Con,
Yo,
and
Chuck.
we already bought it, or at least I already bought my VIP ticket, so I am ready to go. They also had a few other people announced just this past Friday. They got Ray Park, the guy for Darth Maul. They still don't have Veronica Taylor or Sean Schimmel or Christopher Sabat yet. Um, I'm not saying it's gonna suck if they don't show up because I'm gonna bring my Veronica Taylor poster I got from her. It had like all these like it had Officer Jenny, Professor Oak, Ash's mom, Ash, all the Pokemon, and I'm gonna have. She's already signed it. I'm gonna have the voices of everybody else sign the whole thing.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
So I'll get Eric Stewart and just go ahead and get those people and just be done with them.
Yeah. I bought me a 1974 Yamakatsu Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris card. There's apparently a like trading cards of the movie that are basically screenshots of movie stills, and they're slightly smaller than Pokemon cards, but it's like I'm making the signature binder, so it's almost like fun for me. Like, no matter who it is, just have them sign a card so I can have it all in one place. Because what else am I going to have Chuck Norris sign? Might as well have him sign a picture of him smacking Bruce Lee. Why not?
Well, and that's kind of what I'm thinking too, is some sort of card. It's either that or a photo. And you sent me a link to a few of them, and I don't want to get the same one as you potentially, but I think just from looking at it, the one you got might be the best view overall. And I don't know if I'm gonna have like a binder like that, but I might as well potentially start making one or just putting in with everything else just to have it.
Yeah. I think I think Dave Person is actually sending me his signature in the mail right now because I won like some giveaway on their podcast that they announced the other day. And I was like, give the winnings to someone else who's like just starting out or whatever, but can you give me a signed card to go in my signature binder? And I think he is going to send that, but it's like that's going to become my fun. It's like every collector or cool vendor in the hobby just to try to get their signature to like have the memories. Um, I did pick up a Darth Maul card for $8.
You are getting Hey Park awesome.
Yeah,
I think Darth Maul is pretty cool. I think I'm gonna have to get his too.
yeah. I picked up a card there, and then I picked up a Radiant Eevee for Erica. Can't remember what her name is. She does the voice of Eevee, and I think Nurse Joy, maybe. For sure the voice of Eevee though, and you know, it is what it is. But her signature is like so artistic and beautiful. I was like, my buddy Todd got a signature from her, and she is super nice. She's kind of like Veronica Taylor, like just super happy to be there, talk with the fans. But her signature just like pops so much. So I was like, oh my god, I gotta get her signature.
Yeah, she's one of the people I want to sign the poster, and I don't know how I'm gonna transport this poster. I'm gonna have to get a tube or something because it's already got like the corners already bent a little bit. I want to prevent any more damage from it and get it in case at some point.
Yeah, I have a tube that I store some posters in, but there's a lot of posters in there. But yeah, you should get a tube. And you pretty
A
much
tube.
you would just have to hold it for a few minutes to dry, and then you could roll it up.
Yeah. And then yeah. And then let's see. What's else for news?
That's pretty much all I had for news, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can go ahead and talk about the two big announcements for Pokemon Day. Let me double check, make sure the other announcements aren't really worth mentioning. I mean, yeah, the Pokemon Go thing, it's in
Not really
correlation
much. Yeah.
with everything. There's a Pokemon Day store giveaway promo of the Celeridge or whatever the heck his name is. And TPCI warned hobby stores about selling league promos and materials, and they send a timeline, and they're very strict on their times when they can sell. So it appears to be like they're cracking down on a lot of things. We may have mentioned this last time that Japan Pokemon centers are starting to sell English TCG products. We weren't sure if that was just an overstock or they're trying to capitalize on the hype Japanese collectors might be getting into English. I don't know. But yeah, we can just jump on into the two big announcements. I guess we'll start with. Well, should we start with the big one, the mobile game first, or get
I
the
think
ZA out of the way?
the Z, I think that one's the more interesting one of the two, for me anyways, even though I know Pokemon TCG Pocket has more reverberating effects within the hobby. Um, but I'm pretty excited for this game in 2025. Legends Arceus actually brought me back to playing the game, and I actually played that game more than any other modern game in the last like 15 years, or no, I guess 10 years. Like that's how much I played that game, and it wasn't perfect, but it was pretty awesome. So I am very excited to await what's going to happen with this Pokemon Legends ZA in 2025.
Yeah, it'd be interesting the timeline. Have you
I think
played
there's
much Legends Arceus?
yeah, that's like several hundred years beforehand within the Gen 4 games. And this one's looking like maybe a couple hundred years before. So instead of like 400 years, it's like 200 years, if that. That's kind of what I mean. Based on what they showed in the video, that's just the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah. It's interesting. They did like a layout of the map, so like with Legends Arceus, like yeah, you literally go back before the time of Pokeballs and like you create your own, so like you go way back. But
Yeah.
with with Legend ZA, they have like a blueprint of the city. So it also kind of gives me the feeling that it's not quite as far back in the future as we thought. It might be, basically the key point of Kalos is the giant city in the middle of the map. So it might
Hmm.
be going back to a time where like Pokemon was established, but they're starting to build the city. And, that might be why it's not as far back. And they were showing Pokemon like in the blueprint in the trailer, like swimming under bridges. So maybe you're like in the city as it's being built, and there's Pokemon around the city, and it's more of like a urban play style. So to me, it's giving me that vibe more than Arceus vibes. So maybe Legends isn't like a way back in the past game. Maybe Legends is just like Pokemon games that they can put in just any timeline that they want, and they just have a little more creative freedom with that. So that would be cool if it's like not old times, but before modern times, kind of like Johto region feels when things are just starting to explode in the modern age, but you still have Pokemon wandering around the city. Like that would be pretty cool if it was like a
Well, I mean,
city explorer
you.
experience.
I mean, at a certain point, it's just not as fun going back like 2,000 years unless it's a part of the game you're playing. Like you're going even further back within the game you're playing. I just feel like you need to keep it close enough where you can still use some form of technology. Because if you're going to like Egyptian times, well, in Yu-Gi-Oh, they were able to make that work. I don't see how that works very well with Pokemon.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be interesting to see how they utilize this as well. So a lot of people thinks that maybe this means different megas, and I don't know how you will incorporate with that with say it's set in like 1800 steampunk era, you know, and how much are you able to actually have different megas? Like that's not going to make it very continuous with the actual mainline games.
Mm-hmm.
So can you have more megas? Like it wouldn't make sense because then why don't you have those megas in the original games? I guess is that just something that we're all just gonna overlook because we all
You
want the thing
want to
so
come
bad.
back.
Yeah, that it's like well, it doesn't have to make sense. No, it doesn't have to make sense at all.
Yeah. It to me, they're gonna bring it back, or it's gonna be like when they discovered megas. I bet that. Now that I think about it, I bet that's what the game is. I bet it goes to Kalos, but it takes place when they discovered the Mega Stones. So Pokemon are around in abundance, but like I bet the game revolves around the discovery of Megas and the Mega Stones. Kind of
And
like
then you
these
find
Alpha Pokemon invaded Legends
yeah.
Arceus. I bet these Mega Pokemon are gonna invade ZA, and you have to do all that investigating.
So it's gonna yeah, there it is, and then it's gonna be where you can't these Pokemon can't mega evolve or they weren't ever supposed to meant to, but they're going to have all these different new megas of these Pokemon for this era because it's in the experimentation process, like you're saying. That's yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, like the Hisuian
Yep.
variants. So
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna have new megas, and but we do have Hisuian version Pokemon in cards. So maybe that means we're gonna go back to a mega mechanic rather than the EX mechanic. Kind of seems kind of early to jump off the EX, especially after all the hype they had with that. But people loved megas, but it was more so for the video games than it was for the TCG. Like people loved EX cards more than mega cards. But in the games, like the handheld games XY, which I'm one of these people, in my opinion, XY has the best online, period. Just the mega mechanic and how it worked was just perfect. And I like played that competitively, like bred my own teams, trained them up, hours and hours on that game. And people have loved megas ever since then. And
I
every
just think
gimmick they've had after just is not as good.
I think the megas are the coolest because it's basically another evolve form. So it's like it's what it means to go further beyond,
Yeah.
essentially. So
And the gimmick
that's
after that was like Z moves where they just get like they do a little dance and they do a special move. That's lame. Now we
well,
got
it just
Terrastalize where they look like clowns with hats on top of their heads.
they can really milk the shit out of megas with all these different Pokemon, and they can really get creative with different designs. Because it's simply mega is just whatever the previous one was on steroids. It's what it feels like the majority of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, they're so good. Don't get me wrong, but that's why I like seeing them because they're like, what would they do if this guy could evolve more? And I mean, it works, right? It's like their peak form.
Mm-hmm. Or just give every end evolution like a mega form.
I
Like,
mean, that's I think what they should do. Honestly, I think it should be like just another thing to create that goes with Pokemon. That's just like a thing that makes sense is the next linear progression of a lot of different Pokemon that we all already know and love. You don't always need to make brand new Pokemon to try to recapture that same feeling. You can just build on what's already existing.
yeah. Yep, it's gonna be interesting. They did very specifically at the very end of the trailer. They did the mega noise and showed the mega symbol. So
Hmm.
it's definitely going to be a major focus of either the game, TCG, or both. So yeah, it's very interesting. Be crazy if they just brought back all the megas and yeah, it just went back to like the X and Y days. But with that, the even bigger announcement, and in my
Well,
opinion,
actually, wait, hold on.
oh yeah,
Yeah, there's just one more thing that I wanted to say that this might indicate. So the fact that they announced this for this year, for 2025, tells me again that it obviously means it's probably coming out in the first quarter of 2025. But what that also makes me lead to believe is two things we're probably going to see. Potentially a Gen remake for fourth quarter 2025, or we potentially could see the 30th anniversary for fall of 2025, or the Gen 10, excuse me, for fourth quarter of fall of 2025. No, I'm hoping for some sort of remakes so it can go with the like the Arceus what they did, like they did had Eden's Arceus and then it had Brilliant, Diamond, and Pearl.
yeah,
And I think we're going to see something similar in 2025 because it doesn't it kind of make sense and it just builds up to the anticipation of the 30th anniversary of 2026 to have also a new gen.
yeah. And I was gonna say, like, after laying it out, like, I kind of agree with you exactly how it was. If we look back at the Legends Arceus timeline and now seeing this announced as early next year, it pretty much lines up perfectly. Like, in my opinion, they're going to have this come out early, potentially before Pokemon Day
Yep, exactly what I
next
think.
year, just like Arceus did.
Hmm.
And then on Pokemon Day, they're going to announce remakes that come out that year. So, yeah, I guess Black and White. And so then those will be the fall 2025. And then next year for the 30th anniversary, they're going to go all out with everything. And then for the games, have a new generation.
And they could even go in 2026 as well. They could even do it to where they have, I don't know, they could make it to where they can finally do the original games online. And I imagine that's when you see that. I know you were anticipating that for this year and it didn't happen. And I bet that's going to be one of the announcements for 2026 to celebrate the 30th anniversary. I could even see them coming out with some sort of game or gimmick in the early part of 2026 that's not Gen 10. I don't know what that would be per se, but I can see them doing something as well.
Yeah. They have people, hopefully, they don't wait that long to bring those games to the online store or virtual console that they have. But that's what people are begging for. People are asking about that every single day. And they were playing a lot of the OG music during the presentation, so it just sucked that it wasn't in there. But I don't know if it makes sense now for them to announce that. If they don't announce it like later in this year because this is a slower year, they just hold that in their pocket for a little longer and then announce it later this year. If they don't announce it later this year, I can't really see them announcing it next year because they'll have Legends ZA
Hmm.
and probably a remake come out. But I think it would for sure happen 2026 if it hasn't by then, but I just did not think they would make people wait that long. They're probably just holding it in their back pocket.
I mean, I think they saw what happened with the effects of 2020 and some of the other effects, even with Van Gogh, and they love how hyped people got, but it got to a point where it's like everybody was about to, I don't know, didn't feel like things were just about to explode at times.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then I think like people are getting so hyped up that you had you had to have like a come down. You had to like simmer things out.
Yep.
Because you're on this high, and it's just like you're just keep on getting like almost like a mechanic high, and you just keep on getting higher and higher and higher, and it just kind of peaked with V Star Universe and all that, and it's just like okay, we kind of have to just bring it back a little
Gonna have to
bit.
bring it back a little.
Yeah, yeah, and I think they kind of saw that, and you can't you can't always just bleed your consumer base dry.
A lot of people think, and somewhat maybe confirmed if you believe the source, but that the Switch 2 is going to release early next year. So this might be
This
a Switch 2 launch title, ZA.
well,
Um,
they better learn from Power World.
yeah,
They better hopefully work on some mechanics. It's not too late now to fix a lot of that stuff
yeah.
because they've been working on it since last year, maybe even fourth quarter 2022.
Yep, I think we'll see some improvements. It's going to be like the Apple way where like we're not going to see as many features, but they're going to work well. Hopefully. Probably going to eat my words there, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, the Switch 2, there was some suppliers or some dates that there were going to be sometime at the end of this year, and then a lot of publishers got pushed back to beginning of next year. So people were kind of suspecting that the publishers creating these games were going to release them this year on the Switch 2, and all of them got pushed back to like first quarter 2025 all at the same time. So something kind of tells sources that that might mean the console itself got pushed back.
Well, I would hate to have to also buy a new system just to play this game.
Yeah, that's why I never bought like a Switch. I just have the Lite because for one, I mostly just play the Pokemon games by myself anyway. But The only reason I would buy like a Switch is to play like Smash Bros with the wife or something. But yeah, if they come out with a Switch 2 and it's reasonable, like I'll probably go ahead and
Well,
jump ship this
if
time.
it's a bundle with 2 games for $400, I'll go ahead and buy it.
Yeah.
Like if I get this Pokemon game and like the new Mario game, I'll go ahead and buy it for $400. That's pretty appropriate. But knowing Nintendo and Pokemon, it's gonna be 500.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's jump on into the last thing. Oh, there was one more kind of big
One more
news.
thing.
Yeah, I forgot to mention this at the start, but and obviously this is going to be bigger news down the road as Worlds comes, but I guess the location potentially for 2025 Worlds was leaked. There it might be coincidence or it might be a totally unrelated event, but there was a hotel in San Francisco, I believe. It was either San Francisco or San Diego that leaked that a lot of their rooms were blocked off by Pokemon. And it was in 2025, but they didn't say the dates. So, suspicion that it's going to be in California. But like we talked about before, if you look at their schedule and their release of Worlds locations, it seems like they alternate not really hemispheres, but like sections of the map. Like if they continue with what they've done the last 2 years, it seems like they're going to alter U.S., Japan, Europe-ish. But obviously, if they have it in California and Hawaii being this year, that throws that theory out the window. But more to that to come. We won't know for sure until Worlds this year, because that's where they officially announce the next year's location. But we'll see. Someone's getting fired over that one. But
Well, that would have been the hotel staff,
yeah,
not.
yeah, whoever's in charge of that scheduling.
It's almost better just to go ahead and have a like umbrella company or something being, or a shell company being like, hey, this is so and so, and it's that company that books all the hotels and not Pokemon.
Yeah, I'm surprised they don't have that in place if somehow they don't already, unless it's just like for a smaller event that nobody really
Yeah.
cares about. But all right, the big thing. TCG Pocket. Mobile game. I think this is going to be hype levels of like Pokemon Go. Maybe not as much to the surface because you're not going to see people out playing, but everybody and their mother, just think of all the parents and all the kids and all the, collectors who already play Pokemon Go for fun. Even Pokemon Sleep. There's some diehard Pokemon Sleep people out there. I couldn't get into that game, but you get 2 free packs a day that you can crack open on your phone, add to your collection. You can trade these cards. You can battle with decks. You can collect set lists. You can look at illustrations of the cards, and they have special
That part's pretty
3D
cool.
effects.
Mm-hmm.
They have like this immersive experience where you can like kind of be transported in the card's environment, which is weird. But yeah, it's pretty nuts. So that's the gist of it. It essentially is going to be a mobile game that is just that, like digital collecting. They're going to have sets that I imagine come out on a regular schedule. From what we can tell, the developers and the artist are developing sets with unique cards to the online digital version. Like it's going to be completely separate to is what it appears like than actual physical cards. Like they're going to have their physical card sets and they're going to have their digital card sets and no crossover. I'm sure some of the artwork is going to be recycled between the two, but obviously they might throw a different border on there or something like that. in the trailer, they do show people actually trading. Like you just flick up a card and you swap cards. Wasn't really clear if that was in person only or not. Like Pokemon Go, you have to be in proximity. If you do not have to be in the proximity, I will say there is going to be a huge market for that as well. So that'll be an interesting thing to look at. You know, there's a market for shiny Pokemon in Pokemon Go. Like, what if this is much easier and it's like card collecting? You know, there's going to be a market there. So it's going to be interesting to see how things fold out from there. But the battling is very interesting. It kind of looks like it's a quote unquote dumbed down version of the actual game where you have like only 3 bench Pokemon and maybe less prizes. And I have a lot to talk about on that because it kind of really it's similar to me in the way that Pokemon Go did battling. You know, it's nothing near the complexity of the actual games, but it's just something fun and sometimes mind numbing to do, but it's just a little fun side thing to do. And if they dumb down the card game enough where it could be like a quick 5 minute battle, like that would be pretty awesome. Especially given, you know, Pokemon Go, obviously you have your meta, but you're not having a new set come out every 3 months. So with like a card game, the meta changes like much more quickly. So,
Well, I don't do PvP as much as I used to, but they do change what the meta is from time to time, and they'll change up moves and stuff like that. But no, there isn't the same hype with releasing products, and you get 2 free packs a day, which I think is something of note. And they show what it kind of looks like with opening it. And honestly, we both kind of know within the hobby, there's a lot of like gambling addiction. This is just another thing. It's just going to open up a door for somebody else being like, oh, I got this. Cool. And start collecting the cards that way as well. And it's going to it's going to include microtransactions too, like 199 for a pack or something along those lines. And then like, oh, you want 10 packs, 17.99.
mm-hmm.
Or it's gonna be something along those lines because that's something I noticed. You get 2 free ones a day, free.
Yep, you can just
That
log in and open your
yeah.
packs. If you get
That
like
also
the hit of the set, like when the new set comes out, if you get the biggest hit, then you could probably instantly sell it.
well, that's something we don't know. Will you be able to sell stuff like that? I'm sure it's going to be third party market like it is with the Pokemon Go, where you like pay for something and then a spoofer will come in and trade with you. Like you can buy shinies that way. I've never done it, and I've always been kind of confused on how it works with like the Pokemon. But that's the only way that makes sense to me, where essentially they spoof to you or vice versa, and you trade for it.
Yeah, from pretty much what I've seen, it's like, I mean, they'll even, you know, just shiny hunt on the account and then they'll even like just give you the login to the account so you can add yourself as a friend and then trade yourself once you get the, get the friendship up. But yeah, with cards, it'll be weird because surely you have to open up a lot. But it just comes down to if you have to be in like proximity with the person. Like if you could just send to anybody, then yeah, you don't have to be there at all. So that'll be a really interesting part is like if you have to be there in person or not.
Well, and yeah, I would start playing this game. 100%, 2 free packs a day, and it's got similar artwork and it's got new artwork, like exclusive and new renditions over old artwork. I think that's pretty neat. And
Yeah.
we actually discussed this at one point. Like we were talking about like, what's the future of the TCG world with Pokemon? Will it go digital? Like will it keep on making Pokemon cards in 20, 30, 40, 50 years? And it wasn't quite like, oh, they're going to make an app or like, well, would they go digital? Well, here it is.
Mm-hmm.
They've officially gone digital. Now, we know that a lot of people in our generation and older like to collect physical media. Now, even Gen Z to an extent collects physical media. But what about Gen Alpha, the youngest generation? How much physical media they got to collect? And this makes it accessible for those kids. And then, in addition to how difficult some people have to be able to spend money on things like Pokemon cards, a lot of families, especially, do not have the spare income to drop $40 on an ETB for Pokemon cards.
Mm-hmm.
This allows those kids and people that might not have otherwise bothered to go to a store or bother going down the aisle with the cards and buy it. This makes it more accessible to where they might actually do that. And with the ability to include microtransactions and trade with your friends, it has a social media or a social like interaction element while also enjoying the game.
Yeah, for sure. I
So it's
think.
in
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say it's just going to be interesting how they're going to make money off this and how it's going to include with the packs. That's what I'm most interested in seeing as well is how much are they going to be pushing it, especially to buy.
I think. Yeah, it's obviously gonna be no brainer. Gonna be making money either way.
Yeah,
I mean, the
yeah.
amount of resources that it takes for people to design the sets, like, it won't take many people to actually buy the stuff, but or to actually put the resources in. And yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see how the younger generation picks it up because I believe they're more apt to being digital. I kind of find myself in tune with that a little bit. Obviously, with collecting cards, that's a little different, but people collect virtual things all the time. I play RuneScape like
Nerd.
pretty often, and like there's people who spend thousands of dollars on items in that game. So
I mean, I can't talk.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, hush up, $40 a month in Pokemon Go, man, over there.
I mean, I've spent. I mean, it's been thousands of dollars on that game, and if you include all the times we've gone to Go Fest, if you include that money, which I don't per se, because I enjoyed the experiences within the city and just with friends and all that, so I don't include that. But no, I've spent several $1,000s. I would argue I mean, more than 5,000. I know for a fact I spent, and it might even be over 10,000.
Yeah, yeah, that's a lot.
So. But that is from 2016. But I mean, yeah, and it's not as much. It leans heavy pre 2020, where it was like probably an average of 160 a month or so.
Yeah,
But that wasn't until about 2017 or so where that began occurring. So I basically turned 40, and that's when I started spending a lot more money on the game, or I hit 40 in game, and
mm-hmm.
that's when I started spending more money within the game.
Yep, it can add up too, especially the little purchases. So there's gonna be tons of people like that. Magic the Gathering, they have like Magic Arena, and people like solely play Magic online because you just have access to so many more people, so many, you could just buy packs instantly. You go to a store and you can't buy packs. I mean, you can buy unlimited packs online. So there's definitely going to be a market. I think the younger generation is much more prepared, I guess, per se, to go digital like that.
Well, what adds intrigue to that element is the fact that they're making these unique designs, and they're making, in some cases, better designs than what's currently in print,
Yeah.
in my opinion. And all the three cards with the Lapras, the Moltres, and the Meowth are better than a lot of the cards they've shown in some of the recent sets, in my opinion. And if they keep on doing that, that's going to immediately bring more folks in because you just want to collect the art.
Yep, for sure. It'll definitely be successful. I mean, I see it even if like 40 years from now they still only manage to have like a 10% digital base versus physical. Like that alone is going to be so
A
much
cash
money for
cow.
them.
Yeah.
Um, but honestly, when we're talking like 40 years, like when, essentially our generation is out of
Dying out.
here, like just think of a kid today, like he can't afford all these gold star cards, but
Mm-mm.
he has a phone and he can have digital cards and trade with his friends, and that becomes his collecting identity. And over time, with that, as society kind of adapts to that a little more, I could honestly see when we're talking like that far out to be more of a like 70% digital, 80% physical type hobby. Potentially more than that, even. I mean,
I
honestly.
don't think so about that, but I think one situation that you see where you still see a lot of folks still collecting physical media is with vinyl, with music. You know, a lot of people thought vinyl was gonna die, and well, it almost did in some ways, but a lot of folks still appreciate vinyl more than even CDs, and even in the case with like digital media. Like that's where I stream most of my music is through streaming. That's how I listen to most of mine. Now I did get a record player for Christmas, for example, but I haven't even used it yet. But a lot of people do use vinyl still, and I think that's one of the situations where it shows you can still have physical media in certain elements. Comics is another, but yeah, comics is also struggling. But there's still a lot of people that still prefer the in paper stuff.
Yeah.
But with comics, it's more interesting because that's one where I also do read a lot digitally. Because from a cost-effective standpoint, it makes sense to do that.
Yeah. Books. I mean, more people read digital books now. I think the only thing that it hasn't really taken on like fully is collectibles. And yeah, I'll never be a digital person like for my collection, but I know exactly how it's going to go for me. And being like a kind of completionist or like gamer, especially above all else, like I'm going to have obviously continue my in person collection, but I'm going to be opening packs every single day. Like I'm going to be opening my 2 packs, never going to miss a day on that thing.
It'll
And
be
if it
fun,
if it comes
and you
down
can
to it
when you
where
can.
like I need one card to like complete the set, I might be like, "Hey, does anybody have this card? I'll give you $20." Even if it's not long distance trading, there's going to be meetups at like trade nights,
Hmm.
like at collecticons. Like, hey, do you have the digital Charizard EX from this set? I'll trade you this for it. Like, it's just going to be fun. It's going to mimic the binder collection. Like, it's
Or the
going to,
schoolyard. I'm gonna say the schoolyard
yeah,
sort of.
literally the schoolyard binder collection. It's going to mimic that feeling. Like, you have your list, just like you have your cards in your binder. You see the holes missing. You see the holes missing on your list on your phone, and you just complete it. Um, they could. I don't think Pokemon will do this, but I think they could go even farther if they could somehow capture the rarity of cards in the digital form, as in only release like X amount of sets. Like I don't think they'd ever do this, but they could say like, okay, there's this many digital boxes, and like that's all we're making, and like NFT them basically, like each one be like
Well, this is
unique.
dangerous. I'm gonna say this is dangerous territory. This is like basically numbered cards sort of thing
I
territory.
mean, make the number astronomical. Like if
I
it's
guess.
like whatever the in person units are, like I have no idea on the print runs, but let's just say 200,000 booster boxes is their norm for a physical set, which I think it's beyond that.
Yeah.
Um, make like 1 million digital
1
boxes
billion.
and have it where you could like have the box or the packs and like NFT them to where like they're all their own unique item.
That's what I'm saying. This is like the NFT sort of thing just reminds me of this South Park episode at this point, you know.
Yeah. But then that
And
way, if it's Pokemon cards though, like you're only using the NFT ish type to just make sure every card is unique. Like it's like a barcode for every card. So you could release something like Umbreon Alt Art and you can guarantee its rarity because you only printed quote unquote this many in this many boxes and then that's it. Just kind of like the real world. And prices obviously won't get as crazy for digital as they will physical, but it'll add like another layer there and you could trade boxes or trade packs. Like that would just be like too good to be true and like there's a lot of shadiness that could happen probably with that. But
people start beating the shit out of each other in the parking lot. You don't instead of
yeah,
just stealing it from each other.
cuz I mean obviously what they're going to do is like you want to buy a million Evolving Skies packs digitally. Okay, like you can just buy a million packs. There's not going to be a limit on how many are made because it's just digital PNG files. Like you're looking at a file on your screen. You know, there's there's no print capacity because it's just digital. You just people buy them. Okay, you can buy them. So it'll be interesting. There will still be cards that are worth money. Like if it's alt arts. I mean, I imagine like a cool alt art comes out in a set now. It gets down to like what $40 now. I imagine a digital equivalent of that. It might be like $4, but there's gonna be a market for it though.
Well, and it's going to be the coolest thing is you can just like you mentioned with Pokemon Go is you can trade with anybody, right? Like you could have it. Everybody always has their phone with them, so you could always have it your collection with you to trade. So say like your nephew or whatever, say your 6-year-old nephew that collects on your hopefully your his parents' phone and not his, for the love of God. But um, hopefully, that you can swap and trade with him, and that interaction is honestly, that's what makes Pokemon so great, and that sort of sentiment and feeling is why a lot of us really became enamored with Pokemon, right? And that's where the nostalgia that we have. Like we remember being on the schoolyard, being with friends. I'll trade you this. I'll trade you that for this. And that's a big core part of the memory and that camaraderie, that friendship that you get, and that's what makes Pokemon so great. Or one of the things that makes Pokemon as great as it is. And you can now do that at any time, anywhere, with anyone.
For sure, it's gonna be wild.
People, but no, it's gonna be funny if people start just beating the shit out of. Well, not funny, but instead of,
Ha
I,
ha ha ha.
I mean, how I've had, basically packs or boxes ripped out of my hands from people for with cards. I can only imagine the connivery that would happen with trading.
Oh yeah. Yep, it's gonna be wild. It's gonna take the world by storm, but it's gonna be silent. It's not gonna be like Go where you see hordes of people in the streets, but everyone's gonna be playing this thing. So
And are you interested to see what I have pulled during this time?
yeah, I heard you opening here and there. What'd you pull there?
So actually, not too shabby, honestly. Overall, I got the Radiant Charizard. I got the Lapras illustration rare. Cynthia's Ambition, like the full art card. Bay, that's just a hollow. But they got the Zamazenta V Star, and I got the Hisuian Zoroark V Star. Not
Nice.
bad from just 5 packs. Honestly, I've been shit on a lot worse, and this is actually pretty solid.
What's the Zoroark V Star going for now?
That's one I was curious about. I was curious with probably $10.
Is it the one? Is it
It's the one that it looks like all crazy looking, like all these
yeah,
black
it's like
shadowy
number
things.
GG56.
Yep, out of 57.
Oh, I guess you can buy a PSA 10 for $34.
I figured it was about that. Yeah.
$12 or so.
Well, the way I see it, it just adds up. I don't know who I'm going to sell all these raw cards to at some point, but
And those
I'm
are
going to try to get.
English. You
Yep,
opened
they're
English ones.
English. Yeah, the Crown Zenith. It was the Morpeko V Star with Marnie. I got another Marnie playmat.
Nice. That Zoroark might be a card that I'd want, but I'd probably buy Japanese.
Yeah, I mean it looks pretty good overall, honestly, and I might have to when I go see the eclipse in April. I might have to make a stop at Yeti
Yep.
to try to trade up for something and maybe get something graded and sold or sell it at Collecticon for something else. But I have no idea what I even want. I've after last year focusing so much on the PSA 9 Mario Pikachu, I've kind of gotten used to that sort of behavior, and now I can't really buy anything big until I get the first ed trio, like the first edition trio set.
Oh, dude,
So
you should. You do not want to know my habits this last few months, pretty much.
yeah, just selling
It's
everything.
well, and buying things like it's nothing. Like, yeah, I bought a Scream Mimikyu 10 and a Luigi 10. Um, Not even a month apart. And then before that, I bought a. Oh man, what was it? I bought the Poncho Mega Charizard Pikachu and the Mario
Mm,
Pikachu 10 probably a month apart.
yeah, I figure it's gonna take a while for. I'm gonna have to play up. I'm like a few years behind where you are some stuff. So,
Yeah. Pretty
and
much all those big buys, though, so close were just because of Lorcana.
yeah, and
And
I mean, basically, I had to get Lorcana to get me clear of debt, and then everything else is building on top of that for the first edition Charizard, and that's what I'm working towards. And I'm trying to go for a seven, so as you can imagine, I need like $7,000, $8,000. So it's like it's not gonna be easy.
yeah,
I gotta be patient.
you'll have my 5 here in
Well,
arm's
and
reach when we're at KC Con. If I
and
see a
you know,
9, I might try to strike up a deal.
and that might be interesting, but it might be too soon for me to buy a five unless you're willing to hold on to it again until like fall.
Yeah.
But because that's kind of fourth quarter of this year was kind of when I anticipated I'd buy the first edition Charizard.
I could take out a lean of your Mario 9. You could give me your Mario 9 and then give me the cash difference, and then you could buy back your 9 for like the price we factored it in for. Like
I mean,
I can
honestly,
honor that price for like 1 year or something as like a
that's
loan.
appealing. That's suddenly appealing. That now the plot thickens. Interesting. It's just the way I see it is between this year and next year. I see it as this is the time to buy first edition, and we and this is why what I mentioned in the very beginning. I mentioned how there's kind of this anticipation, at least on my end. Now, this is my perception only. So this is where you sometimes have to look out, like being in your own bubble, right? And I think that they are gearing towards a crazy 30th anniversary year in 2026, and I just can't help but feel like that's going to lead to some of the price, it's going to make the first editions, specifically the Charizard, to the point where it's either now or never for me to
Mm,
get this thing. Because say the PSA 5 is around 5K, the PSA 7 is around 7 to 8K, depending on, what somebody's trying to sell it for. Well, we're talking potentially between 2 to 3 timesing potentially whenever there's a next surge within the market. Now, how can you really rate it as like a surge of the market? There's been issues or not issues, but there's a 2020 a market that would never be probably seen again, and the factors that contribute to it. Now, but here's the thing: I'm not looking at 2020 per se. I'm looking at 2016. That is
Yeah.
something that can be recaptured and will, in my opinion, at least a couple more times within the millennial generation. I firmly believe that.
Yeah, not explosive growth, but like a
Strong,
slow, just strong market.
and something where if you look back to 2016, I would have to relook at the numbers again, but it was like two and a half times between 2016 and 2020 what it overall went up after the hypes of those respective eras. So I'm kind, and then even after 2020, it still is about up to 2 or 3 times what it was beforehand. Now it
Yeah.
kind of varies on what it was, but I'm looking at that and I'm seeing, well, so you're telling me potentially a PSA 5 could be, 7 to 10,000, and a PSA 7 could be anywhere from 12 to 20,000. Um, these are numbers where it's harder for me to rationalize spending on a card, at least at this time.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I've been saying it since last summer. I mean, obviously we saw kind of a 2020 situation with the Japanese promos last summer, but if you it's just like the stock market, even if you look at the Dow Jones chart right now, let me just pull that up just to kind of
Well,
compare.
and I'm actually going to write a note for our next episode too about getting those numbers up on a sheet so I can pinpoint to them the
Yeah,
numbers I'm referring
let's
to.
save your question too that we talked about for next time.
Okay.
Because yeah, I think that topic that we mentioned and the question and those numbers will be pretty good. But
Yeah, I think that'll be a good episode. He'll get back on that, and we'll have the intro, obviously, be whatever news, but also kind of what factors I'm looking at between 2016 and 2020, and specifically how it reflects to WotC.
yeah, if you look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average right now, obviously you got to take out the outliers. So you got to take out 2020, but the market went from like almost 30,000 for the Dow Jones all the way down to 19. So that was like a huge drop. Kind of similar to the huge rise we've seen in Pokemon, just astronomical, usually unheard of. But just like the Dow Jones, just like the Pokemon market, if you've waited till about between 2021 and 2022, things calmed down. The Dow Jones went back up and then beyond to what it was, and the Pokemon market came back down, um, but beyond what it was as well. The lows, absolute lows, were not as low as they were before 2019. Um, and now, since then, the market has kind of went down for the Dow and back up again. But if you look at this like across like a long period of time, you can draw some pretty smooth looking lines as like a normal looking uptrend. Kind of the same with Pokemon. Obviously, we got to take out that 2020 chunk, but if you could look at 2019 to 2024 and take out 2022, you would have like a nice steady growth. Like we're growing now, and I think we stopped falling last summer, but we were still higher than the highs pre-COVID, and now we're continuing that slow growth. And I've been saying this since last summer on our episodes. Like, you can feel it. You can feel like the positivity in the hobby again. People weren't too positive this time last year seeing these cards come down, but we were saying, we expect the lows to not be the below the highs of before. And sure enough, things bottomed out, and stuff like the first Ed Charizards, they're quote unquote struggling compared to what we're used to in the hype, but they're overall very healthy and they're being sold at good prices. And that feeling is coming back. Like, you can feel it in the Japanese promos. ZNG Emporium on his YouTube channel is making videos more regularly now. He has one of the biggest consignment services going on. He's talking about how just it's crazy how many Marios there are and like every time you put up a Mario Pikachu, it sells at that 5,000, 6,300 mark. You know, every single time. I don't know why I said five, but they're just consistent, and people are buying these. And every time one is bought, the chances go up that that's going to be in a collection, personal collection forever. I know mine is going to be in mine for a long time.
Mine, I plan on having, well, your offer notwithstanding, I plan on mine being in my collection for a long time too. I also want to kind of pinpoint that my goal is to buy it before Pokemon Day 2025. I know that's semi arbitrary, but that's also to ensure that I don't have to worry anymore about the cards steadily increasing. Because if you also look at the markets leading up to 2016, there was kind of an increase, and leading up to 2020, there was a slow increase in the second half of the year prior. Um, and that's what I'm anticipating. So I just want to have my main goal done several months before any anticipatory rise in the market.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm feeling it too. It's just a time to buy WotC especially, but even promos. I just think they're just slowly gonna continue to get
Promos are
bought
still
up.
good. Promos are still good because again, by the time we hit the 30th anniversary, people are going to be looking at the cards, and guess what are the cards you're going to see? You're going to see a lot of first edition. You're going to see a lot of WotC, key cards in WotC. You're going to see those Japanese ponchos, those promos. You're going to see those constantly shared. Yeah, there's going to be some like Cosmic Eclipse, some sort of like the Umbreon and the Alt Arts, obviously. But the big ones you're going to see are the first two I mentioned. And those are the ones that people are going to go after really quick. They're first going to go towards the shelves or the things that are hot. But you're also going to have a lot of people jump back in that were in 2020 that know a little bit about the hobby come back in, and who knows where they're going to go because their knowledge is a little bit higher within the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing to consider is the buying power of the millennial generation is increasing every single year. By the time you have the 30th anniversary, the bread and butter millennials are going to be between 33 and 37
I know
ish.
they'll have a lot more money to spend on $2 digital packs too, because you know they're gonna make
Exactly.
those digital packs cheaper than actual packs.
Well, I think 199, but they really should be 99 cents a pack. But you know they're going to make it like 199.
Yeah.
They might make it 99 cents at first,
Then they'll have
just to
bundles where you could buy 36 of them at $1 a pack,
or something like that.
like a
Yep.
booster box.
Mm-hmm.
Yup, it's coming. Digital age. But guess we should wrap it up there. We went on pretty long for our Pokemon Day episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess if you made it this long, you want to kind of touch on the next topic a little bit, or kind of give them a little
Yeah.
hint what it'll be.
Just to kind of touch up on it really quick, I kind of mentioned how we're gonna touch up on the numbers and all that to the first edition Charizard specifically, just as an example. And then the fluidity within the hobby when it comes to the cards. Like, you sell your cards to get another card, right? And do you still have attachment to the cards that you had to sell? Do you still like the art on the cards that you had to sell? Do you still admire them from afar? And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about. How a lot of these things within the hobby, just because you sell it doesn't mean it's gone forever. You go to enough shows, and all you got to do online is just go to eBay or TCG Player, boom, buy for a lot of these things. You know, once you kind of understand that, and you can still potentially appreciate cards from far, even though you don't own them.
Yeah. And the cards, I think another aspect of it was the cards that we admire from a distance. I can especially relate to that because whether that be a card that I sell and I never get back and I just watch it, because you know we always have those cards that we sell and then we go back and like look at the prices of them,
Mm-hmm.
just to see what could have been. Like everybody
Yeah.
does that, but yeah, those cards are admired from a distance, even though we don't necessarily mean to. Like we're always curious of how much we could make off it now. But then also admiring from a distance are cards that might be out of reach. Like, if I had the money, would I buy that card? Or am I just kind of watching from a distance? I admire an illustrator, but I'm probably never going to buy one unless I like literally sold everything I had. But even if I did that, like I would probably want to have two because collecting obviously is the main point for me in the hobby, but like eventually I want to sell this stuff and like, help my family out. But if I only have one thing and then I sell it to where I go from one thing to nothing, like that'd be a bummer for me. So maybe Illustrator, if I could sell my entire collection to buy two, even if they're like PSA ones or just authentic ones. So that
Yeah.
situation is like
Yeah, you don't want to get too much though.
not really appealing to me either way. So like that's a card that I'll probably just never have and just admire. So we'll be talking about other cards like that and those situations and lots of other things. But guess that'll do it. And we'll see y'all in that episode next time.
See y'all later. Peace.